How are you?
Good. I listen to you every morning on the way to school.
Oh, thank you, Luke. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm doing this capstone project because when I'm older, I want to be a talk show host on television. And I reached out to like almost every television talk show host I can find, and none of them agreed to do this. So then I thought, let me explore the radio industry and see maybe how it's different. And I
Well,
can,
Luke, you've already learned an important lesson today, is that radio people are nicer than TV people, right?
yeah, yeah,
Uh, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
yeah.
I've done some TV stuff too. I guest host on WFSB every once in a while.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Is it CBS?
It's Channel 3 WFSB. So it's a Connecticut local station. I haven't done it in a while because I've been busy, but actually, we'll see. We'll see what happens down the road.
Yeah. So how did you get started on radio?
When I was in college, I had an internship for a radio station called WXRK K Rock Radio in New York City. And at the time, there was a very famous DJ there. His name was Howard Stern. Have you ever heard of Howard Stern?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So he was kind of one of the greatest radio DJs of all time. And I loved radio. I thought he was funny and he was great. His female co-host, Robin Quivers, I was a huge fan of. So when I was in college, I applied for an internship there. And I did. I got an internship. So I worked there for a couple years. And then after my internship, they hired me to work on the street team. And the street team are the people that go out to events and they hand out t-shirts and they like kind of help get the crowd going. And then I decided that I wanted to work there. So I got a job there, but I was the program director's assistant. So I did a lot of office stuff, which is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on the air.
Yeah.
And I left to become a teacher. And then a lot of years later, I decided that I wanted to follow my passion. So there's one of our sister stations is a small station called 95.9 The Fox. They play rock, alternative rock, and they were hiring. So I applied for a job there and I worked there and then I worked my way up to the other stations.
So you were a teacher, you took a break from radio?
Yeah, I took a break from radio and I went and I got my master's degree in education. I didn't want to work behind the scenes. I wanted to work on the air. So I thought it was going to be too hard to do it. So I went and I became a teacher and I did all my student teaching at West Hill High School in Stamford. And then I decided that it's not what I wanted to do. And I tried some other careers and then I went back to radio.
What did you teach?
I taught high school English.
See, that's a coincidence because yesterday I interviewed a podcaster and he said that he used to teach high school English as well. So I think I'm starting to notice a pattern in here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
also taught public speaking too. So public speaking classes are really important if you want to get into this kind of work.
Yeah. How many years have you been on the air at 99.9?
This is my 12th year.
Okay. So you've been always on the same show every morning for the 12 years?
So so for 10 years I've been the host of my show.
Yeah.
I had a couple co-hosts before Raven. So but there it's called in radio, it's called a cluster, your sister stations. So
Yeah.
there are our parent company, his name is Connoisseur Media, and they're out of Westport, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And they own all of our stations. They own 95.9 The Fox, Weeby 108, Star 99.9, WICC, who am I forgetting? And 99.1 PLR. So everyone always thinks that we're competing with each other, but we're not. We're like one big happy family. All our studios are next to each other. We all hang out all the time, all the DJs. So I started on the Fox, which is the smallest station of the cluster. And then I kind of worked my way up after 2 years to eventually getting to be on the morning show.
So you've been on the morning show for 10 years.
10 years on the morning show, 12 years with the radio stations.
Okay, and yeah, actually I was recently for WICC, I was they announced my name on the air when it was my birthday, so that was pretty cool.
Was it my girl Melissa?
Yes.
Yeah, see, we're all friends.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah, I have family who listens to her as well.
That's great. She's awesome.
Yes. So, you said you have a college education, in teaching, but you don't have anything in speaking or
Yeah,
any,
so my bachelor's degree is from Pace University. So I have a bachelor's degree in communications, and I focused on oral speaking when I was at Pace. And then I have my master's degree from Sacred Heart University in secondary English, which is how I became a high school teacher.
okay. Where is your studio located?
We're in Milford.
Milford. Okay, so all the connoisseur media stations are in Milford, all next to each other, you said?
Yeah, so I don't know if you know this, but we're a nationally syndicated show, me and Raven. So we're our home base is in Milford, but we're on 43 other radio stations across the country. Um,
I didn't know that.
yep. So one of our other stations is right on Long Island. It's Walk 97.5, and that's one of our biggest radio stations. And then we're on radio stations everywhere from Alaska to Arizona to Miami to Texas.
So it's just nationally syndicated, or do you have to go to each one and do a show
No,
every?
we go to our, so the funny part is, and the thing about radio is like you don't really know where we're coming from. So me and you know that we're out of Milford, but nobody else knows where we're coming from. So everybody thinks we're in their backyard, but this is our home base.
Milford?
Yeah, Milford.
Okay, but in Long Island, you also have a studio, you're
We
saying?
have a studio in Long Island. It's in Farmingdale. Um, we go there, but not a lot. Like Milford's our home studio. That's where my chair is. That's where my desk is. That's where my mic is.
Yeah, is it one big building or is it a lot like in television?
We're on the third floor of an office building.
Oh, so it's in an office building.
Yep.
Okay. Would you ever consider going like full time into television, like leaving radio and going full time into television or no?
I think it all depends on when the opportunity, what it was. You never want to say no to anything. So I guess I don't know if I have an answer to that. I think that you would always be open to different options and see what they are. But radio is my first love.
Yes, yeah, so are there any like big differences besides the obvious of like video is television or audio is radio? Are there any like big differences of why you would maybe stay with radio or leave radio? Like, are there any huge differences between radio and television talk shows?
Well, it depends on the kind of TV that you're talking about. So when you're talking about we reached out to a lot of news anchors, you probably reached out to a lot.
Daytime talk show hosts.
Okay, so daytime talk show host.
Yeah,
So I think it depends on what you're looking to do because in radio, so I used to be a stand-up comedian. I used to do a lot of stand-up comedy.
I like.
And in radio and what I do is I get to be funny and I get to tell stories and I get to kind of get everybody involved. On TV, it's a little bit different. It's a lot more interviews and, kind of having discussions. So I get to be a little bit more silly on the radio, which makes it kind
Yeah.
of more fun, but you never know.
Yeah, so on television, you're saying there's it's more interviews and it's probably, would you say it's more like is it like a hard, is television, would you say, harder than radio? Is there like more production and team involved than radio? Is
I
radio
don't
more
I
independent?
don't think one is harder than the other. I think they're just very, very different. So, obviously, how you can look at me right now, right? We can paint a picture, and it's very easy to paint a picture because you can see me.
Yeah,
But in radio, you have to paint that picture for the listener just using your words.
yeah,
So it's kind of like reading a great book. Like when you read a great book and you can picture what's happening in your head,
yeah.
that's kind of the power of radio, which is the difference. It's like saying, well, what's better, watching a movie on TV or reading a great book? They both have their ups and they both have their downs, right?
Like if you watch a movie, you're seeing the action, while reading a book, you have to, in your mind, you have to see it.
Right.
So, yeah, because it's kind of hard on radio when I'm listening every morning. I'm like, so what do they look like? and then you just hear the stories. And do you do interviews?
Yeah, we do interviews. I have to be honest with you, a lot of times interviews are boring, so it's nice to talk to certain artists every once in a while, but um you have to have the right person to interview.
Because
That's something that you're really interested about, you know?
so what do you enjoy really about doing radio? Like, do you like really enjoy it? Are you excited every morning to go on the air? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, to get up every morning at 3:30 in the morning, you have to love what you do, right?
Yeah.
I
What
mean,
do you,
I get to make people laugh. That's my job, is to get up and make people laugh.
yes. Yeah, you just said you get up at 3:30 every morning.
Yep.
So what time do you have to start, like, are there meetings every morning and production meetings?
We don't have production meetings before the show. We have them after the show. So, we crack our mics at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's what time the show starts.
Yeah.
And it goes till 10 a.m. And then usually from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., that's when we have meetings and conversations and brainstorms and recordings, and that's when we do all the prep for the following day.
Okay, so what time do you leave work?
Well, I used to stay a lot later, but I do school pickup now for my girls. So I have a hard stop time at 1 o'clock. And then I usually go home and I just wrap up whatever I can do at home. But all my recording has to be done by 1 o'clock. That's our hard stop.
So when you're at from that 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, do you ever do like pre-recorded things, or is it all live?
So I like to do, if a guest is not coming in live on the air in the studio, I like to pre-record a lot of the interviews, because a lot of times when you're interviewing people, they're not very comfortable. And what I want to do if I'm interviewing somebody is I want them to feel comfortable. So the minute I say this isn't live, we're going to pre-record this and we're going to air it tomorrow. And don't worry if you mess up or you say something wrong, I'm going to edit it. I'm going to make sure you sound perfect when you air tomorrow. All of a sudden they go like this. And that's when you get a better interview. So if I can pre-record somebody, truthfully, I will.
Yeah, I've noticed, well, that goes to my next question. Do you watch any, um, daytime talk shows or late night talk shows, and do you listen to other radio stations ever?
So I don't watch a lot of daytime talk because I usually don't get home in time for it. And by the time I get home, I have kids. I have young kids.
Yeah,
I actually have a daughter the same age as you that we went yesterday to meet with her person for her capstone. So it's funny. But and I'm not up late enough for the late night talk
yeah,
shows, but I do listen to a lot of other radio shows from around the country because I always like to see what everybody else is doing, because you want to make sure you're on top of trends and what people are doing, and see if they're trying something new and what's working for them and what's not, like checking out the competition kind of.
yes. Do you, for, like you said, you don't really watch any talk shows. Do you like ever like enjoy watching other people get interviewed, or do you like doing the interviewing? Because you said sometimes the interviewing can be boring. Do
Yeah.
you enjoy watching other like celebrities get interviewed?
I think Howard Stern is probably one of the greatest interviewers of our time.
Yeah,
I think he's phenomenal. I can listen to him interview somebody, all the time. Like, he's great. Um, yeah, I mean, if there's a great interview on, a good something on TV at night, like, I'll definitely watch it. Obviously, Oprah is a great interviewer. You have to watch the greats like that.
yeah. Do you so when you're watching them, do you ever get inspiration from television, or um are there like things on television that you might see or come across a clip um of something?
Well, it's funny because a lot of times when you're watching somebody get interviewed, what do? You watch the person being interviewed, right? Because you want to hear what you have to say.
I
But
always watch for the host.
well, you watch the host. That's what I do. I watch the host because I want to know how long are they pausing in between questions? Like,
Yeah,
uh, what are they asking as follow-ups? How are they phrasing a question so it's not offensive? Like, those are the things that if you want to be a talk show host that you should look for. It's important.
it is. And when I watch interviews, a lot of times I don't like to watch the celebrity. Usually I always like focus on the host because I'm interested in all of that. But do you ever interview celebrities or is it just like local people in the
No,
news?
we interview. I mean, I like to talk to experts because you want to learn something. So for our show, I always want it to be that when we finish an interview, you learn something. There was a reason why we interviewed this person. But I mean, we've interviewed plenty of celebrities too. Katy Perry, Sia,
In studio?
probably those were Zoom because it was during pandemic times. But Andy Grammer, Gavin DeGraw, we've met all those guys, Charlie Puth a bunch of times. They come around and we interview them in studio.
You book your own guests or do you have a production team?
I have a production team. I have two producers that work on the show, producer Sean and producer John. You could probably hear them on the air. Sean does the booking, but I help because for a long time it was just a two-man show before we had producers. And I used to do all the booking then, so I help whenever I can.
Is it hard doing the booking? Do you get a lot of rejections? Like I was saying when I was mailing, I probably mailed about 13 letters that I sent in the mail to different talk show hosts, and there were a lot of like every single one of them rejected. Do you think that do you get a lot of rejections when you're booking?
Yeah, it's not an easy job. It's probably the hardest job is to be a booking person. There's ways that we've made it easier for Sean and for myself. I think that at this point there's enough recognition that you know who we are and if we reach out most people will make time for us. But I mean, rejection is part of the game when you're a booking producer. It's a lot of it. It's not an easy job and it's relentless and it's all hours because there could be a disaster that happens at 7 o'clock at night and you got to have somebody on at 5:30 the next morning to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, that's when you have to start picking up the phones and calling people and you don't stop until you get somebody.
Okay, so I remember during COVID, like right in the middle of the pandemic, when everything was locked down, you were broadcasting from home. Was that harder? What made it different?
We lasted 6 days at home and it was the worst 6 days of our lives. So technically the FCC and all of us, we are regulated to go to the studio. We were 100% allowed to go to work. We had of government forms that said that we were able that if we went to a gas station they would have to give us gas because we were considered essential employees to get information out. We thought we could do it from home because we just thought that it would be good because everybody was working from home. We wanted to set an example that this will be normal, it's going to be okay. So we tried it and the technology was not there for us. It was nothing we had done before and it was incredibly, incredibly difficult. And after 5 days, I called Raven. I go, we can't do this anymore. And he agreed. And we called our boss, and our boss said, nobody told you to go home. Come back to work. And then we went back, and that was it. It is hard to do the show from home. I had knee surgery last December, so I had a broadcast from home for 6 weeks.
Oh,
And it was a lot easier then because if Raven is in the studio and he can run the board and I'm a remote, it's much easier because we can set up cameras to see each other and it's kind of like we're in the studio. But there's no better back and forth or show than when we're live together.
yeah, because you can't have all the equipment in the studio at home, but like what kind of equipment are you talking about?
It's called a Comrex, is what it's called. And it's basically like a board that you set up at home and it connects you into the studio. And you get your headphones, you get your microphone. Like I had my microphone at home, I had my headphones, of course. And it enables to connect you right through like you're there in person.
Yeah, no, when you're doing the like in studio, like I know you take calls sometimes when people call in. How I've researched that a lot, how they do it on the radio. There's usually like a board or something and they push a button to get the call in. Was was that the same at home, accepting calls?
Well, Raven would take the calls in the studio. I have to be honest with you, Luke.
Oh, then.
When it comes to the engineering is a whole different ball game. And I don't even know if me and Raven could answer a lot of those questions, but they configured it when they knew that I would be working from home for 6 weeks so that I could hear the calls in my headphones and I could hear the callers. But Raven would be taking it in the studio. And so in the studio, we have like a regular phone. It's got like a million lines on it, and we just, kind of go through and they just come on in our headphones.
No, I meant like during COVID, the
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah.
So
So
Raven,
when we were doing it from home, and this is not what people should ever do,
okay,
the technology wasn't there for us to use to do this. So how it worked was that we were doing everything on Zoom, and we were actually not Zoom, we were using Skype at the time. So
okay,
we were recording, and Skype has a feature that you can call people.
yeah.
So we would be live videoing each other, but then we would get the caller in to like conference them in. We'd be recording it into Adobe, which is another recording system that we have downloaded on our computers. And then we would quickly edit it, and then we would upload it to another platform called Zeta to go. And then it would get on the air. So it was a lot of steps, and it was very difficult. And
How,
it's no way you should do radio.
yeah, how did they, were the callers live on air?
So we would have to pre-record them for air during COVID times, because we would have to record it and then upload it to the separate thing. So we ran about a 20-minute delay.
Oh, so the Skype that you were doing how is that broadcasted live on air?
It was never broadcasted live. It was always recorded, and
Pre-
then we would finish a break, stop it, and then Raven would take the audio and quickly upload it to air in the next break. So we were always on like a 15-minute delay
That was during COVID.
during COVID. Yeah, we would never do that now.
Okay, so now it's live except for some of the interviews.
Yeah, we record our callers too. We turn them over, but we record them during songs and commercials, edit them really quick, and then put them on the air. Um,
Callers are
because
not,
we're nationally syndicated, we can't run on a delay. So if somebody says a bad word, we don't have the option to dump it. So there's a button that's kind of an emergency button. So if somebody says a bad word, we used to be able to hit the button and it would erase 8 seconds of audio, because we would run on an 8 second delay. Because of the syndication, we can't have that anymore. So we record everything and then it plays right back. But it's really maybe a 3-minute delay is what it comes down to.
so there, if somebody says something inappropriate, that's not okay for radio. What,
No, it's a $10,000 fine.
on you or on them?
It's on the station.
Oh, okay, so that's good that they have the delay because you don't want the fine.
Nope.
So now when I get older, I want to have a talk show. What advice can you give me?
Okay. Most importantly is make sure you take a lot of public speaking classes and communication classes in school. And take every internship you can get in the field. That's how you get into this business, is you take internships and you prove to yourself, you prove to the people that you're working for that you're good. And then, a lot of times, myself included, I look to my interns to see what interns I like. And then when I have an open position or something becomes available, I say, hey, remember so and so that we had last semester? She's graduating. Let's see if she's interested. And for a lot of people in TV and in radio, that's where they got their starts, is internships on these shows.
You do internships at your station?
Yes.
Is it just your show or is it connoisseur media?
So we have our own interns. Every show has their own interns, and then Connoisseur Media has their own interns as well for back office, from marketing, sales. There's interns for everything. But you have to be able to get college credit
I
or
was
high school credit. We take high school kids from
from where?
Staples in
It,
Westport. They have a program at Staples where they get academic credit, the seniors, for the last 2 weeks of the year. So we always take one or two of them at the end of the year for a few weeks.
so they that that's the high school program at that school and then college. Any college?
Yeah, I think you can find a college that does a great communications program that you find interesting.
Yeah, so that's good internships because when I was doing I also have a slideshow that I did for the capstone project, and I wrote about a whole slide about internships, and I read there are so many different ones, like they have ones for behind the scenes, and then they have ones for like each individual show for different television shows. So you think that internships are a good way to get started in college?
I think it's the number one thing you can do if you want to work in the industry because it's hard. It's hard to be on air. It's hard to get jobs on air. And the best way to do it is to prove that you can do it and do it through internships.
What kind of internship would you say
You
is
figure out what you want to be, and then you find out how to be their intern. That would be my suggestion. I knew I wanted to be like Howard Stern and Robin, so I went and I took any internship that K-Rock would give me, and I proved myself that I belonged there, I could do there. I came up with marketing programs that they never asked for. I would show up with pamphlets with ideas for events and stuff like that, and nobody asked me to do it. I just showed that I could do it, and then when positions came up, I was the first one they turned to.
so YouTube and podcasts? Do you think that's also another way to get started? Because I actually have a YouTube channel. Is that a good way to get discovered?
Um, yeah, you're talking to somebody who's old school, so I can only talk about the way I know. I mean, obviously having a podcast and having a YouTube page is super important because social media and all the new forms of media are important and it's the future. But as long as you keep yourself diverse and do everything, then when you go to these networks, at least you can show that you have background in these things, right? And that you did these things and it'll make your resume stand out from everybody else's.
And it's also about like what people like too, because one time I did a video and it got like 10 views, but then I did a video of my Christmas party at my house on Instagram and that got 30,000 views.
You
So,
can, yeah. Luke, your guess is as good as mine. I spent a lot of time working on social media trying to grow, and I have not been able to find out why I have one TikTok that has 1.1 million views and why I spend hours working on a reel for Instagram and it only gets 1,000. I don't know. Can you take it,
so
please?
I think our Zoom time limit is up, so that's all the questions I actually have, and I appreciate that that you did this. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Luke. Good luck to you, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right, you let me know if you need anything else.
Okay, bye.
Bye.